So my buddy has this chainsaw, and it's a STIHL chainsaw, and let me show you what this looks like. So this was given to him a while back, and it's a STIHL 025 chainsaw, which these chainsaws are actually pretty good chainsaws. But it's pretty neglected. It doesn't run right, it doesn't idle right. And if you look at the bar, you can see there was a lack of lubrication going on. There's some overheating going on right here. The chain is completely gone. And also, if you look at the bar, I don't think they ever flipped it. Okay, every time you put a new chain on it, you should flip this bar around so that it wears evenly, because the bottom is perfectly straight and the top still has the OEM factory curvature to it. So this bar is pretty worn down. It's a really good bar. This one was made in Germany, so it's a Rollomatic E. So these are pretty good bars. I think this is a 16 or 18-inch bar. And so I'm gonna take this thing apart. I'm gonna make sure, I gotta flip this bar around. I have a new chain for it. The dogs are still in pretty good shape over here. It has gas in it that has ethanol in it, 10% ethanol, so I'm gonna drain it and put 100% gas in it. And pretty interesting to see that this chainsaw apparently was made in the United States, which is pretty strange to me. But again, it's an older saw, and I'm gonna fix it up. I'm gonna make sure it runs right. So let's take this thing apart. Okay, so I have the chainsaw on my fabrication table here on my workbench, and the good news is that these nuts were not tightened too much, which is a good sign. You know, a lot of times folks tighten these nuts like way too much. So let's take this off. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. There's a lot of crud in here, a lot of black residue. Let me take this bar off. And again, the chain is completely toast. And I'm mostly concerned about this burned edge down here. And we're gonna measure it to see what its conditions are. So chain is junk. Yeah, there's a burr at the end. And this is a straight edge. Actually, it doesn't look too bad. You know, if you take a look at it, I mean, this is just a piece of flat aluminum, extruded aluminum, but they are pretty straight. You know, I checked it on my welding table, and this welding table is 6/1000 accurate. So this is pretty good on both sides. So if you take a look at it, there's still some curvature to it, but if you flip the bar over, you can see there's a lot more curvature on this side. So this bar definitely needs to be flipped. And I probably just clean it out. The burr is not too bad. I'm gonna run a file across it to make sure it's all deburred. And then I'm gonna make sure the oiler actually puts the oil where it's supposed to go. So let me clean this up and let me blow this out with air. The actual saw, I think, is okay. The sprocket looks okay. It's not too crazily worn, and I'm gonna clean all this up. So let me check with you later. So I wiped the bar off with gasoline out of the fuel tank. The fuel tank has ethanol in it, and I'm using a piece of thick tungsten, and I'm gonna run this tungsten through the groove. You can use a piece of welding wire or any other wire you have, but you want to clean out this groove. And look at this, there's a bunch of yuck in there that you want to pull out. You know, years of neglect will show up here. Make sure the groove is nice and clean. There's more yuck coming out. There's a lot in here. Here we go. Here's another scoop. So I'll pull all this out, and then I use an air hose to blow it all off. That wasn't too bad. And then specifically the oiler, so here's an oiling hole right here, and then the oil gets injected into this hole here, and then it ends up in this bar. And there should be one on the other side, yeah, right here on the opposite side. So make sure these oilers are open, and I'm gonna take an air hose to it, blow them through. And then these bars, they are not too expensive to replace, but I think this one is still okay. I mean, this side is completely worn out, and if you take a look, it's pretty worn out. But you know, I'm gonna do a budget repair. The other side looks really good. They've never turned this thing around, so I'm just gonna turn it the other way and run the chain on this side, and it has plenty of curvature left, plenty of material left. And I'm gonna break this burr here. Here we go. You don't even have to put it into a vise, so let's just see. Just make sure there's no burr. See it, I mean, it cleans right up. There's really not much to it. This is good. And again, I don't think, yeah, here's another one right here. The oiler is not putting out enough oil. Or it is putting out enough oil, but it's like leaking and it's not getting to the chain. And that's why this bar is worn so bad. So the front tip is okay. Again, I'm gonna hit it with an air hose, and this thing is gonna spin like crazy and spit all kinds of chunks all over the place. So let's do that. Okay, different angle here. Let's see what we have. It's pretty deburred. Nothing is sticking out too much. So I'm just gonna hit it with an air hose. Oh, wait. This, I don't like this. Hang on. Okay. So you want to blow out these air holes, these lubrication holes here for the bar oil to get to. So. I'm not quite sure if this is open, so I can feel the air coming out here, so. Blow out the groove on both sides. And then the front sprocket over here, this thing is going to spin like crazy. See, that's good. It's all free. And it's good. I think this bar is good. We're just going to use it again. So this is a hole where the oil gets injected into the groove that lubricates the chain, and this is all open and clean, but there's a little bit of buildup on the outside. Probably the previous owner adjusted the tension or changed chains and didn't clean it up. And I want this to seal flush, otherwise the oil could potentially leak somewhere other than getting transferred through this hole. So I'm just going to smooth this out a little bit. I tried a wire brush, a hand wire brush. It's not really working too well. So I'm going to smooth this out a little bit. I have a little 150 grit sandpaper. I'm using a file. And I just want to take the tall spots off. And I just want to make sure this is perfectly flat. This is already much better. A little bit more. That's it. This is much better. So this is going to seal nicely. Same on the other side. It's flat. I think this is good. So if you look at the chains, this is the old chain. It's completely black compared to the new chain. Again, my suspicion is this chain wasn't oiled properly. And the biggest giveaway is really the bar. The bar is really overheated quite a bit, and I don't think they ever flipped it. So we're gonna be installing the bar upside down and use the other edge for it. I cleaned up the parts. I cleaned up the saw. Blew out all these holes here to make sure that, you know, cooling works. Sprayed it down, blew it off, wiped it down, blew out the air filter. And most importantly, this area here is pretty clean, and this is the oiler. So that's why I wanted to make sure I have a good seal with the bar around this oiler here. So I'm going to start the chainsaw without the bar on it, just to make sure there's oil coming out of this oiler tube. So let's do that. Yep, plenty of oil coming out. So good. Well, I guess we can assemble this thing. So the bar is on here. Chain tension is adjusted. And next we're gonna adjust the engine. I have no idea if this thing idles or not. So you have 3 screws on pretty much every chainsaw. You have an idle adjustment. This is just the RPMs at idle. And this is the first thing you adjust. You adjust this up until the chain starts to barely move before you start your adjustment. And then you have a low speed and a high speed adjustment screw. And on the low speed adjustment screw, you turn it in until the engine, you know, starts to bog down a little bit, and then you open it back up. It runs smooth again, and then you open it some more until it starts to bog down just a little bit, and then you split the difference. And that's a standard base adjustment. And the chainsaw then should take throttle smoothly and rev up nicely if everything is well. And the high speed adjustment screw, you got to be careful with this because it leans out at high RPMs. And if you turn it to lean, the RPMs of the chainsaw will exceed the specifications. So it's best if you have a digital tachometer that you hold near the engine, near the spark plug, and it gives you a readout. They all have limiter caps on it, so usually you can't adjust them too much. But if you have a used chainsaw, somebody could have taken these limiter caps off, and you know, who knows what happened. So let's fire this thing up, get it warmed up, and see if we can adjust this. So let's get my chainsaw fired up here. You want to warm it up quite a bit. So the first thing you want to do is you want to turn up the idle until the chain moves forward, just barely. So go ahead, turn this up and watch on the right hand side as the chain slowly progresses forward. Advanced idle. Then you adjust your low speed screw and you turn it in until the engine drops in RPMs. Sometimes it's only a quarter turn or less, so mark that position. You can hear it's bogging down, and then you turn it back, RPMs come back up, and then you turn it the opposite way, counterclockwise, until the engine drops RPMs again. And then you turn it back, you split the difference, and that's your adjustment. And then finally you turn your RPMs back down, make sure the chain doesn't move. So chainsaw is all done. And that's all I have for you today. And I'll see you guys on the next one.